Let me tell you what most people picture when they hear the word miracle. Something enormous, something sudden, a reversal so complete and so unmistakable that nobody could possibly argue with it, arriving from a very long way off, unannounced, and almost certainly arriving for somebody else. That is what we have been taught to look for. And because that is what we are watching for, we stand at the window scanning the horizon and we miss what is happening in the room behind us. Because in my experience, and I have been paying close attention to this for a great many years, a miracle almost never arrives as an event. It arrives as a book that somebody presses into your hands at a moment when you were not looking for a book. It arrives as a conversation that turns somewhere unexpected, and you go home thinking about it, and you cannot quite say why. It arrives as a friend making a completely offhand remark. They are not being profound. They have no idea they have said anything at all, and it lands in you like a stone dropped into still water, and the rings are still spreading a week later. It arrives as a door closing that you had been holding open with both hands, and which you spend 6 months grieving before you understand what it saved you from, which means something rather startling. It means most of the people listening to me have already had several miracles and have carefully filed them under coincidence. You have had the book. You have had the remark. You have had the peculiar timing that made you say, well, isn't that strange? And then you went and put the kettle on. So I am not going to spend the next half hour teaching you how to summon something from far away. I am going to suggest that you are not far from it at all. That you are, in all likelihood, standing very close to it right now, facing in the wrong direction. And by the end of this, I want you to be turned around. Let us begin. I want to start with why you feel so far away from it, because that feeling is the whole obstacle, and it is not what you think it is. Distance in this business is not a measurement. It is a belief. There are 2 sentences that produce it, and one of them is almost certainly yours. The first is, things like that do not happen to me. Notice how reasonable it sounds. It does not sound like a belief. It sounds like an observation drawn from evidence by a sensible person who has been paying attention. You have years of proof. You could list it, but look at what that sentence does. It is not describing your life, it is instructing it. It goes ahead of you into every room and quietly rules things out before you have even had a chance to consider them. And the second sentence, which is heavier and which some of you are carrying right now, is not after everything that has happened. That one has grief in it. Sometimes it has shame in it. It is the belief that you have been disqualified. That whatever door there was, it closed some years ago and you were not paying attention at the time, and now the arrangement is settled. I want to speak to that one directly because I know something about carrying it. Now, I learned a phrase many years ago from one of my early teachers in New York, a man named Eric Pace, and it changed how I saw everything. He called it the totality of possibilities. I loved it immediately because it gave me somewhere to stand that was outside my own small ideas. Whenever I felt hemmed in, I would say it to myself, and it would remind me that the walls I was staring at were not the edges of the world. They were the edges of what I currently believed, and that is the thing about a limitation. It does not feel like a limitation. It feels like the truth. It feels like realism. It feels like being sensible about your situation. What looks impossible is very often not impossible at all. It is simply invisible from where you happen to be standing. The options are there. They have been there the entire time. But a belief is not an opinion you hold somewhere in your head. A belief is the room you are standing in, and it decides what is in the room. So when you say, there is nothing available to me, what you are actually reporting is that you cannot see anything from here. And those are entirely different statements. though they feel identical from the inside. Now let me be practical about how we do this to ourselves, because it happens in ordinary language, dozens of times a day, and most people never hear themselves doing it. Every time you say, I can't, you have put up a stop sign in front of yourself. I can't afford it. I can't start over at my age. I can't ask for that. I can't go back to school. I can't leave. I can't be the sort of person who does that. And each of those closes a door on your own inner wisdom and blocks the flow of the very thing that might have shown you a way through. Because here is what I have observed. The answer very often wants to come, but the answer comes through a channel, and the channel is your own willingness to consider things. When you have decided in advance that nothing is possible, the answer arrives, looks at the closed door, and goes away again, and you never know it was there. You did not miss out. You declined. And I say this with a great deal of sympathy, because I lived inside one of these sentences for a very long time. I left school early. I was a high school dropout, and I carried a very specific belief about that for many, many years. I said it out loud to people quite freely. I have no education. I can't think properly. I can't get a good job. I can't do anything really well. And I did not experience that as a belief. I experienced it as a fact about the universe, as solid and unarguable as the furniture in the room. Then one day I understood that the limitation was entirely in my mind and had nothing whatsoever to do with reality. There was no law anywhere about what I could learn. There was only a decision made a long time ago by a frightened girl that had never once been reviewed by the grown woman carrying it. When I put it down, I discovered that I could think. I discovered I was rather bright. I discovered I could communicate with people and that people wanted to listen to me. All sorts of possibilities opened up, which from inside the old belief had looked completely impossible. And they had been there the whole time, every one of them. I simply could not see them from where I was standing, and I had made the very common mistake of confusing what I could see with what was there. So let me say the uncomfortable thing gently, because it is the point of this whole first section. You may not be waiting for a miracle at all. You may be disqualifying yourself from one daily in advance, before it has had any opportunity to arrive. And you are doing it so automatically and in such reasonable language that it sounds to you like maturity. Now, I am not asking you to suddenly believe that anything is possible. That is too big a leap. And if I asked for it, you would nod politely and change nothing. I am asking for something much smaller. Are you willing to go beyond what you believe today? You woke up this morning holding certain ideas about what is available to you. You have the ability to move past some of them, not all of them, some of them. That is all learning is. Taking in something new that may fit alongside what is already there, or may turn out to be better than what is already there. Say this with me. I am willing to see beyond what I believe today. And again, I am willing to see beyond what I believe today. Now, if it is already nearby, why have you not noticed it? Because you have been watching for the wrong thing entirely. I want to tell you what I have observed again and again over decades with thousands of people and with myself. The moment a person becomes genuinely willing to change, it is remarkable how life begins to help. It starts bringing what is needed. And I want to be very specific about the form it takes, because the form is the reason people miss it. It comes as a book. Somebody lends you one, or you find one on a table at somebody's house, or one falls off a shelf in a shop, and you buy it without quite knowing why. It comes as a teacher, though usually not the sort you were expecting, and usually not called a teacher. It comes as a friend making a passing remark, an entirely ordinary remark, which suddenly carries a meaning for you that it does not carry for anybody else in the room. I had this happen during my own healing, and it is such a small story that it is almost embarrassing to tell. I had become convinced that a particular kind of practitioner would be helpful to me. I did not know one. I had no idea where to look, and I was not in a state to conduct a search. And I went out one evening to a lecture on something else entirely, for reasons that had nothing to do with it. And the person I needed was simply there, sitting near me as though they had been placed. Now, you may explain that however you like. I am not going to argue with anybody's explanation. But I will tell you that it has happened to me so many times and with such consistency that I stopped being surprised by it a long while ago and simply began expecting it. I made it into one of my personal laws. Everything I need to know is revealed to me, and because I hold that, I keep my eyes and my ears open, which I suspect is a great deal of how it works. So why do we miss these things? The first reason is that we are scanning for the dramatic version. We are watching the horizon for something large, and the modest thing walks straight past us at eye level. If you are waiting for a fortune, you will not notice the small opportunity that could grow into one. If you are waiting for the great love of your life to appear fully formed, you will not notice the ordinary kindness of somebody who has been nearby for 2 years. If you are waiting for a complete recovery, you may not notice the practitioner, or the piece of information, or the small change that begins it. We have been trained by stories, and in stories, the important moment announces itself with music. In an actual life, the important moment usually announces itself by being slightly inconvenient on a Tuesday. The second reason we miss them is harder, and I want you to sit with it. Sometimes the miracle is the door closing. I know how that sounds to somebody in the middle of a loss, and I am not going to be glib about it. Some things are simply painful, and they are painful for a long time, and nobody should rush you through that. But I have watched a great many people, myself included, spend a season in grief over something ending, and then arrive somewhere they could never have reached while it was still going on. The thing they were holding on to with both hands was the very thing keeping them in the room. Sometimes the teacher is a difficult person. Somebody who irritates you beyond all reason is very often showing you something about yourself that nobody polite would ever mention. And I will say this carefully, because it must be said carefully. A great many people who have come through a serious illness have told me that it turned out to be the most significant thing that ever happened to them. Not because illness is good, it is not, but because it stopped them completely and made them ask what they were doing with their life, which nothing gentler had managed to do. I am not saying you should be grateful for your suffering. I would never say that to anybody. I am saying that meaning can be extracted from almost anything, and that the extracting is done by you, and that people who do it recover differently from people who do not. Now here is the third reason, and this is the one I most want you to hear, because it is the one you can do something about this week. The answer arrives as a suggestion, and a suggestion gets evaluated. Somebody says, you know, you would be marvelous at that, and what happens? In under a second, before you have consciously done anything at all, the old belief evaluates the suggestion. And the old belief says they are only being kind, or they do not know what I am really like, or that is not realistic at my age. And the suggestion is dismissed, and the conversation moves on, and you will not remember it by Thursday. The miracle was not withheld from you. It was declined. Politely, automatically, by a part of you that was installed decades ago and has never been reviewed. Somebody offers help. You say, oh no, I am fine. Somebody invites you. You say, I would only be in the way. An opportunity appears at slightly the wrong moment. You say, not now, perhaps later. That is the whole mechanism. It is not mysterious, and it is not cosmic. You are simply saying no very quickly, in a voice so familiar that you have never identified it as a voice. So here is what I would like you to do for 1 week. Just one. Treat every unexpected suggestion, every invitation, every odd coincidence, and every book that turns up as though it might be addressed to you personally. You do not have to act on all of it. You only have to stop dismissing it in the first second. Let it sit for a day. Let it be considered by the part of you that is not frightened. And notice how much arrives. That is the part that startles people. It is not that things suddenly begin appearing. It is that you begin noticing the traffic that has been going past your window the entire time. And while we are here, I would like you to do something else, which takes about 2 minutes and which people find quite moving. Look backwards. Go through your own life and find the times this already happened to you. I am serious. Sit down with it. Because I have never once done this exercise with somebody and had them come back empty-handed. Not once. Think about how you met the most important person in your life. Not the version you tell at dinner parties. The actual sequence. How many small, unlikely things had to line up in exactly that order? A canceled plan, a wrong turning, a party you nearly did not attend because you were tired, somebody bringing along a friend. Think about the job or the house or the opportunity that changed things for you. Trace it back. Who mentioned it? How did they come to be in a position to mention it? What would have had to be different for you never to have heard? Think about the thing you did not get that you wanted very badly at the time and that you are now quietly relieved about. Think about the piece of information that arrived at the last possible moment. The person who happened to know the one thing you needed to know, the book somebody left at your house. And then ask yourself honestly what you called those things at the time, because most of us called them luck or coincidence or a funny thing that happened. And then we went straight back to believing that nothing much ever comes our way. That is the strange arithmetic people do. They have a lifetime of evidence, and they do not count any of it because none of it looked the way they had been told it would look. So count it now. Make a proper list, if you like, on actual paper. 5 things that arrive that you did not arrange. And when you have your 5, notice what that does to the sentence. Things like that do not happen to me. Because you are now holding evidence against yourself in your own handwriting. That sentence is not an observation. It never was. It is a filter, and it has been discarding the evidence as fast as the evidence arrived. Now I want to add one more thing about how these arrive, because there is a pattern to it that is worth knowing. They very rarely arrive as a complete solution. They arrive as a next step, one step, usually a small one, and usually not the one you would have chosen. You want to know how the whole thing's going to work out, and what you get is a telephone number. You want a plan for the next 5 years, and what you get is a suggestion about next Tuesday. And people reject the next step because it is not the whole staircase. They say, well, that would not solve anything, and they are quite right, it would not on its own. But the second step is not visible from where you are. It only becomes visible once you are standing on the first one. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked. You are given enough light for the next bit of the path, and not 1 inch more, and the people who arrive somewhere are simply the people who walked on the light they had. Say these with me now. Everything I need to know is revealed to me. Everything I need comes to me in the perfect time and space. Sequence. And once more, slowly, everything I need comes to me in the perfect time and space sequence. Now there is one condition on all of this, and I will tell you honestly that it is the part almost nobody wants to hear. You do not have to deserve it. I want to say that again, because I suspect a great many of you have quietly organized your entire inner life around the opposite idea. You do not have to deserve it. You have to be open to it, and those two things get confused constantly because we were raised inside a system of earning. You worked for your marks, you worked for your wages, you were good, and then you were given something. And so it seems perfectly natural to assume that good things are payment, and that you must first become the kind of person to whom payment is owed. So people wait. and they call it preparing. I will start when I have sorted myself out. I will be ready when I have dealt with this. When I have lost the weight, when I have fixed the finances, when I am not such a mess, then I will be the sort of person good things happen to. And it never comes, because there is no committee. Nobody is assessing you. There is no point at which you become qualified and receive a notification. Now let me draw a distinction that will help you enormously, because I am not asking you to believe anything you do not believe. There is a difference between belief and willingness. Belief is a large thing to ask of somebody who has been disappointed. If you have hoped for something several times and it did not come, then being told to believe feels like being asked to walk back into a room where you were hurt, cheerfully. Some of you cannot do it today, and I am not going to demand it. Willingness is much smaller. Willingness costs almost nothing. Willingness is simply leaving the door unlocked. You do not have to be waiting in the hallway in your good clothes. You do not have to be certain that anybody is coming. You only have to not have bolted it and put a chair under the handle and gone upstairs. And I will tell you something that has been consistent in everything I have ever observed. Willingness is enough. It is a smaller door, but it opens onto the same room. So if belief is too much today, take this instead. I am willing to believe that good is coming to me. I am open to the possibility that I deserve it. Say them. Notice that they cost you less than you expected. Now, the deserving trap has a particular shape, and I want you to see it clearly, because it does not only delay your good, it spoils it when it arrives. Do not wait until you have got it right before you love yourself. Dissatisfaction with yourself is a habit. And here is the thing about habits. They do not dissolve because circumstances improve. The machinery that finds fault keeps running regardless of what you feed it. So if you cannot approve of yourself now, then when the good thing finally does arrive, you will not be able to enjoy it either. The fault-finding apparatus will simply turn and examine the good thing, and it will find something. It always finds something. It is very skilled. I have watched people receive exactly what they asked for and be unable to hold it. They get the relationship and spend it waiting to be left. They get the money and cannot spend any of it without a sick feeling. They get the recognition and decide that everybody involved has made a mistake and will shortly discover it. That is not bad luck. That is a person receiving something into a room that had no space prepared for it. So love yourself now, not when you have fixed it. Now, as you are in the middle of the repair with everything unfinished, now let me show you where your ceiling is, because everybody has one and almost nobody has looked at it. There is a level of good that you are comfortable with, and just above that level there is a line. And when things go better than the line, you do something. You get suspicious. You start waiting for the other shoe to drop. You find a flaw in it so that you can relax again. You bring up something difficult at exactly the wrong moment. You work so hard that you become ill and cannot enjoy any of it. You quietly arrange, in some small way, for things to return to the level you know. That line is not a coincidence. That line is the exact height of what you believe you are entitled to. Find the line and you have found the belief. And once you have found the belief, it stops being a fact and becomes a sentence. And sentences can be rewritten. Now, I need to speak about responsibility, because this is where people take a wrong turn, and the turn is expensive. When I say that your beliefs shape what you can receive, some people immediately hear an accusation. They hear, "This is your fault." And then they take that and add it to the pile of things they use against themselves, which is simply the old belief finding a new use for new information. So let me be very clear. There is an enormous difference between responsibility and blame. Blame is about giving your power away. Blame looks outward and says, they did this, and therefore only they can undo it. And until they do, I must wait. It often sounds strong. It leaves you completely helpless. because you have handed the controls to somebody who is not even in the room and who is not thinking about you. Responsibility has nothing to do with fault. Responsibility is your ability to respond. It is simply the acknowledgement that you are a participant in your own life and that there is a move available from where you are. That is all it means. Not, I deserved what happened. Not, I should have known. Simply, I am here and I have a move, and guilt has no place in this at all. Guilt is just another limitation. It locks you out of your own good, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with who you actually are. If you have hurt somebody, say so and stop doing it, and then put the guilt down, because carrying it does not repair anything, and it does not make you a better person. It only makes you a smaller one. Now, one last thing before we move on to what you can actually do, and it is a practical image I have always liked. Have you ever cleared out a cupboard? You take everything out, you find things you have not worn in 10 years, and things that were never really you in the first place. You give some away and throw some out, and then you put back only what you actually use in an order that makes sense. And the strange part is what happens next. The next time you bring something new home, there is room for it. It hangs properly. Before you cleaned it out, anything new had to be forced in sideways, crushed between old things that were doing nothing except occupying space. Your mind works exactly the same way. We keep bringing in new ideas and jamming them between beliefs that expired years ago, and then we wonder why nothing ever settles. So make room, not the whole cupboard, one shelf. Now, before we go on, there is one more thing standing in this doorway, and it is the largest of them all. So let me name it. Fear. Fear is rampant. You can see it everywhere, and you can feel it in yourself if you sit still for a moment. And most of the disqualifying we have been talking about is fear wearing more respectable clothes. And here is what fear actually is underneath. Fear is a lack of trust. We do not trust ourselves. And because we do not trust ourselves, we do not trust life. And because we do not trust life, we feel we must personally control every single thing from the physical level, using only our own two hands and our own limited understanding. And of course, we cannot. Nobody can. So we are frightened all the time, and we call it being realistic, and we call it planning ahead, and we call it knowing what people are like. The alternative is not carelessness. I am not suggesting you do nothing and hope. I am suggesting that there is a difference between doing your part and clutching at everything. Trust is what we learn when we want to move past fear. Some people call it the leap of faith, and I understand why, but I think that makes it sound more dramatic than it is. In practice, it is much quieter. It is simply the willingness to proceed without a guarantee. I believe I am being taken care of, even though I am plainly not in control of everything happening around me. I decided that a long time ago, and I made it a personal law. And living from that is a completely different experience from living the other way. Not because the events changed, because the bracing stopped. Now, when a fearful thought comes up, I want to suggest something that may surprise you. Do not fight it. Say to it, I know you are trying to protect me. I appreciate that you want to help. Thank you. Because it is trying to protect you. That is its entire job. When you are physically in danger, your body floods with what it needs to keep you alive. And it does not ask your permission. The fear in your mind is doing the same thing, in the same way, using information from a situation that ended 20 years ago. It is not your enemy. It is an old employee working from an out-of-date manual, extremely loyal and no longer well-informed. Acknowledge it, thank it, and then proceed anyway. And here is something else about fear that I have found useful. Observe it and recognize that you are not it. Think of your fears the way you think of images on a cinema screen. What you are watching is not in the room with you. It is frames of light moving very quickly, and it feels utterly real while you are inside it. And it will pass as rapidly as it came, unless you insist on holding on to it and running it again. And most of us do run it again. That is the whole trouble. We watch the same frightening film several times a day, and then we wonder why we feel as though something terrible is about to happen. Fear is a limitation of the mind. That is all it is. It is not information about the future, though it presents itself as information about the future, very convincingly. Say these with me now. I deserve all good. I am open and receptive to my good. And once more, I am open and receptive to all good. Now, how do you actually open the door? There are three things, and you can begin all of them today. You cannot manufacture a miracle. I want to be honest with you about that. There is no technique that produces one on demand, and anybody who tells you otherwise is selling something. But you can make yourself reachable, and that is almost the entire game. There are three things, and none of them is difficult. The first is to order clearly. I like to think of this as placing an order in the cosmic kitchen. You walk into a restaurant, you sit down, and you give your order to the waiter. And then what do? You talk to whoever you came with, you drink your water, you have a bit of bread. What you do not do is follow the waiter into the kitchen to check that the chef received it. You do not stand over the stove supervising. You do not ask every 4 minutes whether it has started, and whether the chef is really trying, and whether perhaps you should have gone somewhere else. You assume it is being prepared. It is on order. It is happening, and that assumption is not passivity. That assumption is trust, and trust is the actual mechanism here. It is not a decoration on top of the technique. It is the technique. Now, two things about ordering. The first is to be clear. A great many people order vaguely. They say, I want things to be better. Better than what? In what way? A vague order produces a vague result. And then people conclude that the kitchen is not listening. Say what you actually want, not who is to provide it, and not how it is to arrive. Those are not your department. And every time you specify the how, you are narrowing the doorway that your good can come through. And do not name a person. To affirm that one particular individual must now love you or hire you or change is an attempt to run somebody else's life, and it tends to come straight back at you. You do not know what their lesson is. Name the qualities you want. Leave the casting to life, which is considerably better at it than you are, and which will very often surprise you. The second thing about ordering is this, and it is subtle. Do not order while apologizing for taking up a table. I hear people do it constantly. They ask for something and then immediately shrink it. I would like a good relationship, but obviously not anything special. I know I am difficult. I would like to be comfortable, though I do not need much. I do not want to be greedy. That is not humility. That is an old belief, editing your order on the way out. Ask plainly. You are allowed to be here. The second thing is not to dig up the seed, an affirmation, a request, a new belief. It is a seed. And when you put a seed in the ground, you do not get a plant the next morning. And you certainly do not dig it up every afternoon to see how it is coming along, because if you do that, it dies, and then you will be entirely convinced that seeds do not work. You water it, and you allow the growing season to be as long as the growing season is. Now, here's the part that catches people, and I want you prepared for it. Sometimes conditions get worse before they get better. I want you to know that ahead of time, because this is precisely where people quit, and the tragedy is that they quit at the moment the thing was beginning to work. When you start this, you are not building on empty ground. You are untangling something old. And when you pull on a knot, the very first thing that happens is that it looks worse than it did before you touched it. Old feelings surface. Situations that were quietly wrong become loudly wrong because you have stopped anesthetizing yourself against them. Sometimes something falls apart that was only being held together by your silence, and it feels like you're doing, and it is not your doing. It is simply what happens when one person stops pretending. That is not failure. That is the old threads untangling. Flow with it. Do not panic and decide it is not working. And there will be a transitional period from the moment you decide until the moment you see anything at all, where you simply go back and forth. Some days you will be entirely the new person and it will feel effortless. And then a Thursday will happen and you will be exactly who you always were, watching yourself do it. That is normal. That is natural. It is not a relapse and it is not evidence of anything. Everybody who has ever changed anything has gone through it. And do not say a thing 3 times and then announce that it does not work. 3 times against 30 years of the opposite. And then we wonder why the 30 years is winning. The third thing is to clear the channel. And this one is the most important, so I will spend the longest here. You cannot receive very much while you are living backwards. And the specific thing that keeps people living backwards is unforgiveness. Now, I have observed something over many years, and it is so consistent that I have come to rely on it. People who struggle to love themselves are almost always people who are unwilling to forgive somebody. Those two travel together. When somebody tells me they are getting nowhere with self-love, I have learned to ask who they are refusing to release. And I want to be extremely careful about what forgiveness is, because people resist this word for very good reasons. And often those reasons are excellent. Forgiving somebody does not mean what they did was acceptable. It does not mean you have to see them or speak to them or ever let them near you again. It does not mean you were wrong to be hurt, or that you should have got over it sooner. Forgiveness is not a favor you do for them. Most of the time they do not even know about it. Some of them are not alive to know about it. It is simply the act of setting down something heavy so that your hands are free for something else. Because when you refuse to let go, you bind yourself to the past. And if you are living in the past, you cannot live in the present. And if you are not living in the present, then I would like somebody to explain to me how exactly the good is supposed to find you, since the present is the only address you have. Old rubbish from the past creates more rubbish for the future. That is not sentimental. It is mechanical. And when people finally do it, they describe it identically every single time. They say it felt as though something came off their shoulders. Of course it did. They had been carrying it for years and had stopped noticing the weight, the way you stop hearing a noise that never stops. You can do this at the mirror, incidentally, which is where I have always suggested people begin. You can say things to the glass that you cannot yet say to a face. You can have the whole conversation out loud with nobody there to interrupt or defend themselves. Now, there is a companion to this, and I am going to say it plainly, even though it is uncomfortable. What we give out comes back to us. So if there are a great many losses in your life, and things keep going wrong in a way that feels almost patterned, it can be worth looking honestly at where you are taking. And I do not only mean money or objects. Most people listening to this would never dream of stealing a thing. But we take in other ways. We take somebody's time and do not value it. We take somebody's self-worth by making them feel guilty, which is a theft, and a serious one. We take confidence from people with a small remark and then forget we said it. I am not raising this to induce guilt. Guilt is useless, as I said. I am raising it because it is the same channel. What flows out is what flows in, and if you want to receive more freely, it is worth checking that you are giving freely and cleanly and without a hook attached. If dishonesty brings disharmony, imagine what honesty and love can bring. So, the daily practice. Small enough to survive an ordinary week. In the morning, at the mirror, before the telephone gets hold of you, say your line. Out loud, looking at yourself, not at the sink. Through the day, whenever the old thought turns up, answer it. The old thought becomes your reminder, which means the thing that used to defeat you is now the thing that prompts you. And once a day, do one small thing as though the good were already on its way. Accept a compliment without deflecting it. Say yes to something you would normally decline. Let somebody help you. Make one inquiry about the thing you have been telling yourself is not available to you. Because it is what you do after you say the words that counts most. Say these with me now. I am open and receptive to all good. I trust the process of life. And once more, I am open and receptive to all good. Now there is one more thing, and it is the one that turns all of this from a technique into something else entirely. The most reliable way to receive anything is to circulate it. So I would like us to finish differently, not with more instruction. I would like to do something together. Get comfortable. Let your hands rest. Take a slow breath in and let it go. And another one. And as you breathe out, let your shoulders come down from wherever they have been living. There is nowhere you need to be for the next few minutes. Everything that is waiting for you will still be waiting, and it will manage perfectly well without you for a little while. Let your jaw soften. Let your hands open. Now I would like you to look deep into the center of your own heart and find there a tiny pinpoint of brilliantly colored light. Whatever color comes, let it be that color. Do not choose it, let it show you. It is small, almost nothing, but it is the very center of your love and your healing energy, and it has been there the whole time. In every difficult year, whether you knew about it or not, watch it begin to pulsate gently, in its own rhythm. And as it pulsates, it grows, it fills your heart, and then it moves beyond your heart, out through your chest, up through your throat, to the top of your head, down through your shoulders and your arms, all the way to the tips of your fingers. Down through your body, through your hips, your legs, to the very tips of your toes. Your whole body is glowing with this beautiful colored light. Let it vibrate. Let it be warm. And with every breath you take, you are getting healthier and stronger and more whole. Feel this light moving through you, cleansing as it goes, allowing what is natural and healthy to return. It is not fighting anything. It is simply filling what was empty. Now let it begin to radiate outward from you in every direction. Let it fill the room you are sitting in. Let it move through your home into every corner, into the rooms where difficult conversations have happened, and let it soften them. Let it reach the people who live with you or near you, whether or not things are easy with them at the moment. Let it touch them without asking anything of them. Let it move down your street, into houses where somebody is frightened tonight, into houses where somebody is ill or alone or lying awake. Let it reach the people you know who need it. Bring their faces to mind. You do not need to do anything clever. Simply let the light go where it is needed. Let it move into hospitals and into places where people are waiting for news, into homes for the old, where somebody has not had a visitor in some time, into prisons, into every place where people have run out of hope and now choose one place on this planet, one. It may be very far away, or it may be around the corner from where you are sitting. Concentrate your light there. See it coming into balance. See it whole. And take a moment each day, if you will, to send your love and your light to that one place. Not because it is a technique, because what we give out comes back to us multiplied, and because there is nothing else you could be doing right now that would do more good. Now bring it home. Turn the light back toward yourself. And this is the part that many of you will find hardest. So go slowly. See yourself surrounded by love, not deserving it, not having earned it, simply surrounded by it the way you are surrounded by air. See yourself happy and healthy and whole. See your life as you would actually like it to be. Put in the details, not the vague version, the specific one. What is the room like? Who is there? What are you doing on an ordinary Wednesday morning? What are you no longer worrying about? Let it be as good as you can bear. And notice, as you do this, if something argues, something may say, this is not going to happen. Something may say, you are being ridiculous. That is all right. Let it say what it says. And then continue anyway, because that voice is not the truth about you. It is simply an old tenant, and it has no lease. You deserve to live well. You deserve to be healthy. You deserve to be loved and to be loving. You deserve to prosper. And the small child you once were deserves to grow up and have a wonderful life. And it is not too late for that, whatever your age is, as you sit there. Now take the love from your heart and let it circulate once more. Out from you, around the room, around your home, and back to you. Feel it returning, because it does return. It cannot do anything else. The most powerful healing force there is love. And it does its work in the sending. Let it wash through you once more. And this time, do not direct it anywhere. Simply let it be there, filling you, going nowhere in particular. The way warmth fills a room, you do not have to do anything with it. You do not have to earn it or deserve it or justify sitting here receiving it. Let this be 1 minute in your life where nothing is required of you. Breathe, and if tears come, let them come. They are not a problem. Something in you has been waiting a very long time for somebody to be kind to it, and it did not expect that person to be you. You are love, and so it is. Now stay with me for one last thing, and then I will leave you alone. I said at the beginning that you were closer to a miracle than you think. Here is what I meant, and I want to be precise about it now that we are at the end. The miracle was never a delivery. It was never a parcel arriving from somewhere else, addressed to somebody more deserving, which might one day be redirected to you. The miracle is the moment you become someone who can receive one. That is the whole thing. That is what changes the odds. Not the universe rearranging itself around you, but a person who had been quietly declining everything for 30 years, leaving the door unlocked for the first time. And that change has already begun tonight. It began somewhere in the last half hour, when you recognized one of those sentences as yours and felt something loosen slightly. It will not look like anything. That is what I want you to be ready for. Nobody will notice. There will be no music. Tomorrow will be an ordinary day, and you will do ordinary things, and somewhere in the middle of it, somebody may say something offhand, or you may see something, or a thought may arrive that seems to come from nowhere. And this time, instead of dismissing it in the first second, you will let it sit. That is all a miracle has ever needed from anybody. So say these with me now, slowly, and mean them a little more than you did half an hour ago. I am open and receptive to all good. Everything I need comes to me in the perfect time and space sequence. I love and approve of myself. And this last one, which I would like you to carry out of here with you. All is well in my world. Once more, all is well in my world. Now go gently. Keep your eyes open this week. And do not be too quick to call anything a coincidence. And so it is.
Click the first link in the description and watch the free healing presentation, where you will learn how to truly heal from the root and finally stop piecing your healing together in fragments. This will show you the complete path to heal fully, gently, and deeply from A to Z.